Welcome. My name is Matthew Jide. Today I'm joined by Martin Slater, Director of Services Security, and Mark Thomas, Cybersecurity Strategist and overall intelligence guru. Thank you for joining us. Today we're here to talk about our third edition of the Global Threat Intelligence Report. It's a fantastic report that we partner with our other NTT organizations to put together. It really gives us an understanding of what's happening out there and where the bad guys are getting stronger and how we as enterprises are defending against them. The report also looks into the future and looks at cybersecurity as an enabler of a digital platform. The threat landscape obviously constantly changes, and the organizations that we work with are looking for security to put technologies in place, to put solutions in place that not only prevent but also detect and remediate any potential threats that they have to their networks. So what I'm going to do is hand over to Mark to give us some key findings. So Mark, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So what we're seeing is malware authors are innovating. They're improving their tools and their tactics, and really this is demonstrated through their effectiveness in their malware. They've embraced the concept of resilience and survivability. So malware capabilities are really mirroring the goals of a robust security program. For example, a security program's objective is to withstand attacks, be ever present, and to be in control of that environment, and monitor end users, so whilst being transparent at the same time. Likewise, the same can be said about malware. It seeks to be persistent yet transparent, so it can carry out its actions. It has to be effective, just so that it can survive. So what we've seen is that malware is being more frequently used to breach defenses and maintain persistence. We've also seen an increase of 18% across all industries, except for education. Government and manufacturing was the most targeted this year. We also saw malware being more prominent. The complexity is rising. It's becoming more evasive. It knows when it's being analyzed within a virtual sandbox or an emulated environment, so it's able to hide its true intentions. And that really poses a challenge for security vendors and the organizations they're meant to protect. So I thought that was an interesting discovery, but we also analyzed attacks by type, by source, and by sector. Martin, is there anything that you can say about these sources of attack?
Yeah, so Mark, very much consistent with previous reports. In terms of source location, the US still continues to be the primary source, at least for in terms of location for attacks, but not. This isn't necessarily a case of all the cyber criminals residing in the US. I think what's happening is there's obviously highly available, mature, fairly inexpensive infrastructure that cyber criminals are using within the United States to launch their attacks from. And I think in addition to that, it's also the US is also the most attacked in terms of destination location out of all locations. Again, consistent with the numbers that we've seen from previous years. And so, to prevent things like geo-blocking, cyber criminals would launch attacks on US destinations from the US itself. So, the one thing we did note is that in terms of source location, the percentages went up, 65% from 56% last year, which probably just means it's a comfortable domain, from which to launch attacks from, and it's still very much in terms of the fact that the infrastructure there is just highly available, it's inexpensive, and attackers find it a good ground from which to launch attacks from. I mean, that's in terms of the location. Have you got anything for us in vertical data, Mark, and how that's coming through in the report?
Yeah, sure. If we have a look at the sector breakdown previous years, so threat actors have now shifted away their focus, I guess, from the financial services industry towards retail for the first time since we've been doing these reports. So retail is now the #1 targeted industry. It's grossing 11% of all attacks, which is slightly ahead of hospitality, leisure, and entertainment sector. And it's doubly troubling for retail because NTT Group was engaged to conduct far more IR investigations with our retail clients than any other sector. So what that means is that whilst attacks are not only increasing against retail, they're also being more successful in breaching their defenses. So you may ask, why is that the case? Why have attacks shifted to retail? And I think there's two key points. Firstly, you have retail, it's undergoing digital transformation. Many businesses are establishing a more significant online presence. Their business models are evolving, and the consumer behavior is changing itself. So there's a much larger surface area now for criminals to target, hence why we're seeing that surge in attacks and incident response engagements. And secondly, if you look traditionally at financial services, they've invested heavily in securing their infrastructure, works and processes, because traditionally they have been the target of attacks. So over time, they've had to improve their defenses and reduce their risks in order to gain that client's trust. But now we have cyber criminals seizing the opportunity to target retail precisely because they haven't kept pace, or I guess with the investment in security. So if you have a look at the global threat landscape, it's constantly changing. Yet retailers still process high volumes of credit card data. They have access to our personally identifiable information, and that data has intrinsic value on the underground economy. So when we look at these types of attacks, what stood out for you, Martin?
Yeah, so I think in terms of attack type, there's still, the obvious stuff like brute force attacks happening, and that's gone up marginally. But by far the most significant thing for us was the anomalous activity. And it's quite clear that attackers are now going after data. They're looking for places where they can get the data source. And as you said, that has intrinsic market value, dollar-based market value. And that's really what these people are after. So anomalous activity up well into the 30s from 20%, and that's around things like privileged access escalation attempts. So people are really focusing on database sources, data sources, PII data, credit card data, etc., because that generates revenue for them. So Mark, I don't know if you've seen that in terms of how we're analyzing vulnerabilities and whether those vulnerabilities are mirroring the attack types, but not sure if you got any comments there.
Yeah, look, when we did the vulnerability analysis, we uncovered a few interesting statistics. The first being that 21% of vulnerabilities were more than 3 years old, 12% were over 5 years, and 5% were over 10 years old. So those figures are really quite revealing. I think what that indicates is that patch management remains a challenge. That issue is unlikely to go away anytime soon. And I guess it's going to take a lot of prioritization and investment into more effective remediation strategies. Clients are having difficulties in not only identifying the scope of their digital footprint, but also deploying patches to vulnerable assets and testing out their effectiveness as well. Are there any other findings that stood out for you there, Martin?
Yeah, I think lastly, from my point of view, the end user was still very much the weakest link and a prime target for cyber criminals. They're still using tried and tested methods like social engineering. I think there has been a significant increase in education amongst end users, specifically from financial services or industries that have deemed to be large holders of private data. But clearly, given what you've mentioned relating to attacks on retail increasing so significantly, I think what's happening is cyber criminals are identifying that data lives elsewhere, and there are probably less educated end users in other vertical industries that they can go after. So very much consistent with previous reports, but still a massive challenge for us in the security industry is the end user and the endpoint as a weakness. A lot of attention still required there, absolutely.
Guys, that was awesome. Thank you very much for taking some time out just to run through the high levels of what we're seeing in the report. This is our third one, so we really are starting to see some trends. For me, one of the key things is we continue to see the same problems. I think those old pieces of malware and old hacking, phishing type techniques continue to penetrate our clients' networks. So, for me, that's all about cyber criminals. Although they're continuing to evolve in terms of their attack vectors, they're still using the old tools that they can because clients are allowing them to. So it's really about looking at security as a business enabler within the digital business. So I think the report is fantastic. Hopefully everybody out there gets a chance to have a look at it, run through it. Please feel free to reach out to Martin, Mark, or myself if you've got further questions, or for that matter, anyone in the DD team. This is an important report to us, and we obviously all go through the report and understand what it means and how we can, I guess, better equate that to a business context. The clients, they need to stay a step ahead of the cyber criminals. They continue to evolve. They continue to attack our networks and take what we consider as critical data for our organization, be it IP, be it credit card information. So the threats are still there. The good news is that we continue to work as an industry to help protect our clients. Reports such as this are fantastic and really gives us an opportunity to identify areas that we can focus on. If you want to see more information, please go to this link, which should, through the magic of internet, appear between my two fingers. You can also engage with us around our Twitter platform. So that's Dimension Data Security, hashtag Threat Intelligence Report. With that, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this Google Hangout, and really look forward to engaging with you. Thank you.